There are elephants. I felt really sorry for them. I always feel sorry when animals are killed in war movies because they don't know. They're just being driven forward because
clumsy,
there's food.
clumsy.
Yeah, clumsy beasts. Hello there! It's Friday, which means it's time once again for the best movie podcast ever, the only movie podcast to offer objective and hyperbole-free discussion of every movie in the known universe. I am your host, the podcaster with no name, and with me as always, fear is his mind killer, it's Anthony James.
This is the Culture Cave. Hello, Konrad, how are you?
Oh, lovely. A little plug, just to let them know that we're not some rubes who don't know what we're doing. We're professional. I'm okay. The saying in show business is never let them see you sweat. And I'll be honest, folks, I've been sweating a lot in the last week because A, it's really hot in the United Kingdom, and B, I had my second vaccine yesterday. Oh. So it's all coming to a head for me. What about you, Anthony? How are you doing?
Well, I had mine a few weeks ago, so it's past the head now. Moving up into Sky at the minute, but it's going well over here. We got the rain after the heat, so it's sort of subsided a little bit, which is always good.
It's still absolutely boiling here. I think it's not helped by the fact that some of the eagle-eyed among you, or at least on the video podcast, will notice that I'm in slightly different surroundings because I finished moving house, which means I now live in an oven with my significant other. I live in a literal oven. Anyway, I've mentioned June in the, or I haven't. I suppose it's not mentioned, but I've quoted June in the little introduction there, and that led me down a movie rabbit hole. It's sort of, I don't really know how I got there, but it led me to Zack Snyder's 300. I'll say that much. Like talking about ovens and desert planets, and somehow I navigated my way from June trailers to 300. So we're going to talk about it. I am going to give absolutely zero clues about Back to the Future, except to acknowledge that it exists, because you've had enough of that. You've had enough of gimmies. And Jordan Peele has revealed his new movie, which we're also going to have to speak about because we're all big fans of Jordan Peele here on the good ship BMPE. And of course, finally, last but not least, Garth Marenghi's Darkplace. It's not a movie, but it's only streaming on bloody Amazon Prime, and I'm just going to talk about it because it's my prerogative. Something you can do about it. I meant
to watch the first episode, but I didn't. So
okay.
Maybe between now and next week, I could watch at least a few episodes of it.
Well, yeah, I mean they're like 20 minutes long, and there's only 6 of them, so it flies by. But without further ado, Anthony, I say let's talk about some gosh darn movies.
Let us do it.
Movies, we're here to talk about them. I say that, but the first thing we're going to talk about isn't a movie, it's Garth Marenghi's Darkplace. Where better to start than with the topic, which is in no way about movies. Although I will say, the cinematic quality of Darkplace is self-evident, and this is my opportunity to tell everyone they should watch it. Now, I slightly misled you, actually, Anthony, when I hastily messaged you as soon as I found out this was the case. It does actually require a purchase. Like, it's just available to purchase digitally. But given the only ways to watch this show before were essentially to torrent it or to try and dig out a copy of the DVD that's quite hard to find now from somewhere, this is a huge step forward. So if anyone is in the mood for, how would I describe it? It's like Twilight Zone if it was mixed with like a hospital procedural made in the 80s that's deliberately really bad. That's basically what Garth Marenghi's Darkplace is. And you'll recognise loads of people in it. It's got Richard Ayoade playing Dean Lerner, playing Thornton Reed. It's got Matt Berry, who a lot of people probably know him from like The Mighty Boosh, I guess, or Toast of London more recently. But he plays an actor called Todd Rivers, who plays Lucian Sanchez, like the maverick hotshot doctor. So it's basically like a show within a show, and it's absolutely amazing. Please go and watch Garth Marenghi's Darkplace. This is my plug for it.
Isn't Matt Berry in IT crowd in the first season. He's like the boss.
Yeah, he's the boss, I think. Yeah. So I mean, they're all in it together. These guys, they kind of came up together. Like Julian Barat is in this. Noel Fielding turns up as well. It's very much like the kind of
Stephen Merchant apparently turns up.
Stephen Merchant's in an episode. Yeah. Unfortunately, Graham Linehan's in an episode who is a real piece of shit now. But it's great. It's worth watching. This is my plug for it. I promise we'll get back to movies now.
But I'd look forward to watching it though. I need to watch it.
It's so good. I don't think I'm exaggerating when I say I think it's one of the, I'm going to say, top 5 British comedies ever made. Like it is that good to me. It's so funny.
Awesome.
Now, I can't promise that the next film's going to be funny. Although I mean, it might be. It might be like Us and oh my goodness, the other one, Get Out, had their funny moments. Have you seen the? All we've seen of it, to be honest, the movie poster for Jordan Peele's Nope that came out last week.
I've seen the movie poster, and I don't know, like, we don't have any details on the plot, really, do we?
No. So the only thing we know about it is it's starring Daniel Kaluuya, returning from Get Out. I don't know how to pronounce this name. I never looked up, but it's either Keke or Kiki Palmer from a movie called Hustlers that was really good that came out in 2019. Stephen Yeun from Sorry to Bother You and Walking Dead fame, and someone called Barbie Ferreira, whose name I'm not familiar with, and someone you will be very familiar with. That is, of course, Brandon Pereira of OA fame as French. But we know very little else about it, except that the movie poster depicts a sort of
cloud.
I guess it's like an ominously solitary cloud with what looks like a kite string kind of trailing
it's like
from
bunting, isn't it? It's like bunting.
Yeah, or like bunting or something. And it's like approaching an isolated mountain town by the looks of things. And to be honest, when I first saw it, I don't think this is going to be what it is, because I don't think Jordan Peele really does these kind of adaptations. But when I first saw it, it put me in mind of a Stephen King, I think it's a short story called Rainy Season, basically about a couple who visit a small town where like the rain basically holds a deadly secret, and it turns out to be like frog monsters that kidnap you. And I was like, is this that? Are you adapting a Stephen King short story? I don't think he is, but I'm very interested to see more about it.
So I haven't seen Us. I will be honest. People I know who've seen it weren't that high on it, to be honest with you. Not as much as Get Out, anyway.
No, it's definitely not as good as Get Out.
So I'd be interested to watch it anyway, just to see.
Yeah.
I will be honest with you. Get Out is a very technically good film, and I did enjoy watching it, and the tension that it builds in it is really, really great.
Yeah.
But I don't know, like, for me, maybe, I don't know, from the start of Get Out, I was just like, all right, well, these people are all racist pieces of shit, you know?
Yeah.
And I was just like, okay, this is, but oh no, where it goes, I was never going to predict, let's be honest. And I really enjoyed where it went. And I loved like sort of the intricacies of like the sunken place and stuff. I loved all that stuff.
Yeah.
But
the presentation of the sunken place is great.
From the start, it was just like, I know who the bad guys are from the start. And
the white people.
So it makes me think, like, is that intended? Like, I know it's intended. Obviously, it's intended. But I mean, if an American audience was watching that, you know, sort of like the whole. I think what he was doing was he was like it was a comment on, you know, like people, like, you know, it's sort of was thinking they're not racist by saying how much they love black people. You know what I mean?
Like it's about like a kind of infatuation with stereotypical qualities of a certain race and how like that can transfer quite naturally into latent racist thought, even with people who think they're very open-minded.
But my question is, like, in America, in the situation that's in America, I'm just wondering if people in my position in society in America got that straight away as well, or did they think, oh, here's some lovely white people who aren't racist at all?
Yeah, his I can never remember the name of the actor who plays the dad in that, but he was in The West Wing, and he's very and Cabin in the Woods. He's very funny. I don't think it's necessarily like trying to conceal where it's going. You know, like I think it's pretty clear that like Daniel Kaluuya is, and particularly given you see Lakeith Stanfield get jumped by some people in this kind of sunny, or it's not sunny at the time, but this kind of pleasant suburban neighborhood right at the beginning, and then Daniel Kaluuya is very evidently the only black person in the neighborhood apart from I looked up his name the other day. It's like Bo Keith Woodbine or something. He's got a great name, but the guy who's no, in fact, am I thinking of someone else? Is he in that movie? I can't remember. It's been a while since I've seen Get Out, but there's very few other black people in that movie, and I think it's
Marcus
clear that
Henderson, I think, is the name of the character you're thinking, or the name of the actor you're thinking of as Walter. Little Rel Howery is his friend. You know, his friend who some hilarious things happen at the end with.
Yes, it's a great ending for that. That's one of those movies where, depending on the crowd you see it with, that ending can play very, very differently. Like I've got some friends in America who went to see it in like more like black neighborhoods where the audience was predominantly non-white at least, and they reported back to me the like adulation and cheering at the end of that movie, not to give anything away, but whereas I think it might have got a slightly cooler reaction in more white neighborhoods, maybe, or maybe not. I don't know. I don't want to speak for whole communities. I was definitely rooting for Daniel Kaluuya's character at the end of it.
yeah.
But yeah. So I mean, I really like Get Out. I thought Us was really good as well. I don't think it realized what it was trying to do as well as Get Out, but I also think it was a lot more ambitious in some ways, and I would say it's worth seeing. But nope, and it is in all caps. That's important. I have no idea what it's going to be about. It's certainly provocative though. It's got the people going.
Yeah, it speaks to me like an alien thing or something, and like that people are just like nope, and like maybe they just start running away from the aliens.
That'd be great. Or it's about weather manipulation. Maybe someone's got like someone's like seeding clouds.
It might be doing a climate change sort of thing.
Can you
interesting?
That'd be. I mean, it could be actually, like a kind of a metaphor for climate change delivered through the means of horror. I wonder if it's even a horror movie. I assume it is because that seems to be what he makes. But
seems to be.
We shall see. But that's going to do it for the news section this week. I just wanted to get those two incredibly important things out of the way. Both definitely movie related, which leads us quite naturally into something I'm going to give absolutely zero clues about. I'm not going to help anyone because you've had enough help for the last couple of weeks. And that is, of course, the exciting game show segment. It is Back to the Feature.
I'm nervous this week. I'm nervous.
You'll get this.
To live up to.
You will. I would put my house on you getting this one. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying.
Oh, jeez.
Welcome, friends, old and new alike, to the exciting game show segment, Back to the Feature, where I have selected a feature film from 25 years ago today, as close to today's date as possible. Anthony will hear 5 clues and have 5 opportunities to guess the title of a film. Each clue he hears will lower the amount of points he will receive. And please play along at home. Anthony, are you ready to play Back to the Feature?
I am not going to let you finish your sentence because I am ready.
You don't want to step on the host's lines. Like they get very cross about that on the game show circuit. They'll cut. What's the guy's the Family Fortunes? Steve Harvey, is that his name?
Yeah, in America, yeah. Steve
He'll
Harvey.
come after you. Okay, here we go. Back to the feature. Clue the first. Villain Pam Ferris would often stay in character between takes to try and scare the children on set so that their fear could feel real for the shooting.
Pam Ferris. Is that character or actor's name?
That's the actor's name.
I'm not going to get it from that then. She would stay...
I deliberately did not give you the character's name because I thought you'd get it immediately.
Okay. Stay in character to scare the little kiddies on the set. So obviously there's lots of children. Okay, I don't think I'm going to get it from that. So I'm going to just guess Hocus Pocus. It came out way earlier than that, but we'll just guess it just to move on.
Yep, it's a great guess. It is not correct, unfortunately. It's not Hocus Pocus, but a lovely shout for a movie I haven't seen. I wonder if that holds up. I haven't seen Hocus Pocus in a long time.
Well, over here in Ireland, they've started putting it in Omniplex cinemas every Halloween. Like they bring back
really?
old films, so you can go see it. You can go see it and other Halloween classics in the cinema.
Yeah, I love that. I went to see like Jaws and Alien in a back-to-back one Halloween. That was a great experience.
That's awesome.
Clue the second. Danny DeVito was both the narrator and the director of this movie.
Oh, okay. I thought this came out.
He's talking very confidently here, folks.
Yeah,
this is what Anthony's doing right now. Is he's dribbled the ball around the goalkeeper. He's got the goal bearing in front of him, and he's taken a moment to sort of show a bit of swagger.
Taking a moment to get down on all of my hands and knees, and I'm going to head it across the line from an inch out. Classic 12-year-old playground tactics. But the question is, I honestly thought this film came out earlier than 96. But it mustn't have.
I don't think so.
The answer is Matilda.
I'm inputting Matilda into the Back to the Future computer. It is a stunning run of form for Anthony here. A 5-pointer last week, a 4-pointer this week. If I'd have said villain Miss Trunchbull in that first one, it would have given it away immediately. I couldn't do it. To be honest, I'm familiar enough with this movie that I was struggling to come up with stuff that wouldn't immediately give it away. And Anthony, works with children. And I was like, he's gonna know this. He's gonna know
anything you gave me, I probably would have got. To be honest with you, have you got a clue about a little girl being swung around by the pigtails by any chance?
No, I don't. But I'll read you the rest of them so that you can. I can take you through the journey that you would have taken had you not been switched on. So the third clue, this maybe would have given it away, although I think quite a lot of people probably don't remember the name of the girl, of the actress who played Matilda.
Mara Wilson.
Yeah, well, there you go. So, child star Mara Wilson's mother sadly died of breast cancer while filming this movie, leading her to become very close with co-stars and real-life couple Danny DeVito and Rhea Perlman, who played her parents in this movie. Which is just a
interesting,
lovely little heartwarming story that they horrible to her on screen, lovely to her off it.
I'm sure people who listen to us won't listen to this guy, because I don't understand how you could listen to a couple of like youngies like us and think that this guy is pretty cool. But interesting, Mara Wilson is actually like the cousin of that extremely right-wing oil company talking head Ben Shapiro.
Is she actually?
She is, yeah. And she's disowned him. She's disowned him publicly.
That is outrageous. That's. God, worlds colliding there. That puts me closer to Ben Shapiro fandom than I care to be honest.
Yeah, that's why I was like, there's no chance.
Disavow.
At this point, if you're listening to this point, there's no chance you're a fan of that guy. If you are, let's have a talk. Let's
agree to disagree and part ways amicably.
Let's talk some movies.
Yeah. Okay, so clue 4 would have been the scene where, again, a banker this one, the scene where Boris Bogtrotter is forced to eat an entire cake, took so long to shoot that the call sheet had an infinity symbol written for its start and end times. Which I guess means they got paid infinity dollars for shooting that.
I'm just going to... For the first time ever, I'm going to question this clue.
Go on.
Is his name Boris? Because I remember in the film they go, "You can do it, Brucey."
Hold on. Let me make sure that I've not screwed up here. It fucking is Bruce Bogtrotter. I've written the clue wrong.
Hey-oh.
Outrageous.
Than the fella who was researching it. Oh, come on.
That is out. I don't know where I got Boris from. I'm like, because. Well, there you go.
Bruce. I just remember, you could do it, Brucey. Like
Boris Bogtrotter is his Russian cousin.
Yeah, Boris.
In Russia, cake eat you.
Yeah.
That's a Family Guy joke from probably about the year 2009 for all of you hip young kids out there.
Well, I remember it's Brucey because like my whole childhood would have been a lie because every time like one of us was eating food, the other one would be like, "You could do it, Brucey." Like growing up, 100%. It was so funny.
I look at that now as a 34-year-old man, like that cake eating. I'm like, I could do that. That's a piece of meat.
Yeah, piece of meat. To be honest with you, I'm better at the savoury stuff, but I could definitely I could beat Brucey. No bother at all.
Oh yeah. Call yourself a binge eater. Bruce, you should be ashamed of yourself. And the final clue, this surely would have brought everyone to the finish line. The picture of Miss Honey's father, Magnus, is actually a picture of the original author of the novel that this movie is based on, Roald Dahl, which there aren't that many Roald Dahl adaptations, I guess. Like there's, I mean, James and the Giant Peach, Matilda,
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
oh,
BFG.
Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. Oh, there are, yeah, okay, there are BFG. Did they do the Twits? Did that ever get adapted?
Maybe for TV some point. I don't remember an actual film of that. Maybe there was.
Yeah, well, okay, there's more than I initially remembered, to be honest.
Danny DeVito narrating a Roald Dahl film is just, it works way better than you think it should. Like,
yeah. Like that whole like casting feels like it should be wrong, because Roald Dahl, when you read them, they feel very like kind of British. Even though he was only half British, I think, the Roald Dahl, but yeah, the way they managed to like translate it into something that's much more kind of international, it was exceptional. And Matilda is still a good movie. I like Matilda. Like it's a great movie for kids, and a great book as well.
Yeah, and she randomly has superpowers, so it's always great. Like,
yeah, she got telekinesis. She should be, maybe she grows up to be in the X-Men. I don't know. Like, it's possible. And, I'll tell you what else is fantastic, and that is Anthony's score for it. He's got a 4-pointer, followed up a 5-point week with a 4-point week. It's absolutely stunning, and yet another glowing endorsement for Back to the Future as a platform for Anthony to show off his film knowledge.
Well, I got 2 zeros in a row. Let's never forget that.
That is true. Listen, they've got to... If you don't love me at my worst, you deserve me at my best. Okay, talking about worsts and bests, and the distance between those, I think it's about time we start talking about a Zack Snyder movie. Now, before you tune out, listeners, know that it's probably not going to be that positive a discussion. I'm going to lead with that. I don't want to colour the proceedings too much, but I arrived at 300 as an idea. I stuck this on. My partner said to me, we were sitting on the sofa, and I was like, I'd been watching Dune trailers all day, and I was like, I'm in the mood for something like with sand related. I was like, I could watch Stargate, but I couldn't find Stargate anywhere. And somehow, I could go for Spartacus. I could go for Lawrence of Arabia.
Gladiator.
We'll come back to Gladiator.
I know. I was thinking the same thing. I think.
I looked for Gladiator. I couldn't find it anywhere. And we'd also been watching The Wire, or rewatching in my case, The Wire, and Dominic West plays a main character in that. So I saw 300 on Netflix, and I was like, okay, I'll stick this on. And as soon as I stuck it on, I'd asked my partner, what do you want to watch? And she said, anything, don't worry about it. As soon as I stuck this on, she said, I should have said anything but this. And that informed much of the discussion going forward. And I messaged Anthony and said, I'm watching 300 now. We could do a Best Movie podcast ever on this. But I'm not going to lie to you. I don't think it's going to be a positive one.
Okay, well, we'll just... I think most people probably know what 300 is about at this point, but we'll just say it's very quickly. It's like a group of 300 Spartans who are sort of trying to fight a huge amount, like thousands and thousands of Persians. I
think they literally use the term millions in this. So it's like 300.
Yeah, they said he must be exaggerating, and then they see like it looks like millions. To be honest.
Yeah. So it basically tells the story of the Battle of Thermopylae. So a bunch of Spartans hold a mountain pass against the Persian Empire to try and buy time for the rest of the Greeks city-states to get themselves sorted and mount a defense, which did happen. It is a real thing that we have historical record for.
Okay, before we start, I just want to say that Konrad did send me a message before I watched it. I haven't seen this film since probably 2010. And Konrad,
was that the first time you saw it, in 2010?
I think I saw it in the cinema, but I vaguely remember watching it at home at some point as well, but I can't remember when exactly that was, but it was a long time ago.
Okay.
I do have it on DVD, and it was back in those days when I bought it and watched it. But basically, Konrad sent me a message saying, just to warn you, I hate this film. So I went into it knowing that. And I'm going to be honest, I was expecting just like, because when someone tells you it's, something's crap or whatever, you can be biased going into it and just find everything hilarious. Now, don't get me wrong, there was some of that. But I will say that when I first saw this as like a 16, 17-year-old, I thought it was cool as fuck. And
absolutely.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. I honestly, at the time, was a bit of an idiot. I was like, those abs must be CGI'd on. I honestly believe that. And then whenever we decided to do this again, I watched it again, and I'm gonna be honest, I don't hate this film either. But I will say, probably just because of like seeing so much more stuff now, it's no longer really cool for me. It's not a cool film anymore. It's just is what it is. They get threatened by the Persians. They go and try and beat the Persians. There's not much else to it than that.
Yeah, and I think I'm similar in that I first saw this movie in the cinema when I was probably 18 or something, and I loved it. And then I saw it again when I bought the DVD of it in my mid-20s, and I thought it was okay. And now I've seen it in my mid-30s, and I didn't like it much at all. And I feel like this is kind of the barometer by which I can chart my changing tastes in movies. Because I think there is something to be said for a movie with a very striking aesthetic, which this definitely has. It's very like high contrast, very very dark colors, and lots of or very dark shadows, and the kind of reds and oranges and the bronze hued skin is all very pronounced. And there's that sense of kind of style is carried over into some, I'm going to say, we won't talk about it quite yet because I'll get into it in spoilers, carried over into some troubling depictions of the Persian Empire, let's say. But I mean, there are good things about this movie. I think the script is not one of them, which is the first place I need to begin. So we begin our story with Leonidas being visited by a Persian emissary who basically says earth and water, to demonstrate rather your subservience to the Persian Empire, and we'll let you go. And Leonidas responds by kicking him down a well. And then
he kicks plenty of earth and water down there, and that must be like I remember that being like one of the original memes on YouTube and stuff.
That's the drinking supply though. I don't understand. It's like you just kicked a bunch of bodies into the thing that you draw water from to drink. Like it seems also. It's a very big well. Like that's the biggest well I've ever seen in my life. It's a huge hole in the ground.
It's his kicking well. He's kicking well. He's got other ones. There are other wells like that.
It's just like a bunch of like goats down there that he's kicked in anger.
He sent Spartans down straight off to fish the body out. Like that's.
Oh yeah, that's probably true.
That's the part they don't show you.
That's part of their training. And so they do go very deep in this idea of like Spartan warrior society. They're trained as children to be these super soldiers. I don't mind that stuff, like the kind of cult of the Spartans, even though it became something else. I feel like it was kind of co-opted by a subsector of largely male society that was a bit like, stop talking about Spartans, guys. Like they weren't as good as you think they were. They never won any major wars for a start. But I think those early ideas of like the I can't actually remember what the process is called, but where they're training the kids are fine. But then they get to a bit. Fairly early on where a character tries to join the Spartan army and they say, oh, you can't because you can't fight in a phalanx or a phalanx formation because you can't raise the shield. And then literally the next scene they break formation immediately, and it's just like who wrote this, who thought this was okay to put this scene after that one where like this whole this character has basically been rejected from ever achieving their dream and will go on to cause some fairly significant problems for the Spartans, and all because they like want him to fight in a formation that they evidently don't fight in this movie.
I'm gonna be honest with you, I didn't even notice things like that. Like army formations and stuff are not my bag, baby. I think I really understand when people criticize. It's like in Game of Thrones. Like as soon as people at season 8, where people are like, why were they standing outside the castle? I was like, yeah, that's pretty stupid. Actually, I didn't even think of that.
Sending your light cavalry into the front of zombies is a terrible idea. Who thought of that?
Yeah. So I love the analysis like that where you just like. Doesn't make any sense, the war on screen, but I don't have that brain. Like I don't know enough about war to even think about that. So I know what you mean. Like the shield up, and all. I just looked to myself like, these are the good guys of the film, and like they're just partaking in such horrible discrimination. Never have I seen discrimination such as this since The Greatest Showman, starring Hugh Jackman.
There's a cut scene from this where Leonidas begins to sing "A Million Dreams." To his army of muscular men, and I will say the cast in this movie is a bit ridiculous. I suppose at this point, people like Dominic West and maybe Lena Headey weren't as well known. Michael Fassbender certainly wasn't, and David Wenham. I suppose you can make the argument that David Wenham never really became well known, even though I know him from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah.
But there is like a really good cast in this movie, and it's not they're not bad actors. I think it's just a very typical Zack Snyder script, which he wrote the screenplay for this, adapted it from a Frank Miller graphic novel. But I think, were there any performances to you that kind of stood out as particularly good or notable?
Well, not necessarily, to be honest with you, in terms of really, really well acted. But I will say that I do believe Jared Butler did create a character that's at least memorable. Like, I think you have to be a well drawn character to be called iconic, but he definitely is memorable. Like, I think the Leonidas character is very memorable from this film.
Yeah, I think, for better or for worse, Leonidas and this idea of like these Spartans did strike upon something and enter into a cultural zeitgeist. Yeah. Now, I don't particularly like that zeitgeist, as I say, because I think it was co-opted by some fairly unhealthy aspects of society. But you can't deny the fact that it became very popular. That it was popular enough that there was a movie called Meet the Spartans that came out. You don't get lampooned like that unless you're at least pretty popular.
There was another performance, Konrad, which I don't know if you noticed too much, but was it Xerxes, the bad guy?
Do you know who plays that character?
That's exactly what I'm going to say. Lovely performance.
I could not believe this when I read. I was like, I need to go look up who this guy is, because I'm pretty sure I remember being told he was Brazilian. Anthony, tell everyone who is playing Xerxes, the 8-foot-tall Persian emperor.
So it's Rodrigo Santoro, who, of course, you will know, especially if you're following the After Dark podcast at the minute, as Hector from Westworld.
Unbelievable! He looks completely unrecognizable. I
can't believe how old he is.
How old is he? I didn't actually see that either.
Well, he's 46.
Oh, okay. I think I would have put him in his 40s. He's aged well. I'll give him that. But
I think it's just that I didn't know about him till Westworld, and then I found out he was in this like 10 years before, and that's what made me think, what?
I think I must have been misled, because I think someone told me he was like a Brazilian basketball player who's actually like 8 feet tall, as he's depicted in this movie. Which
that is...
I'm pretty sure, based on Westworld, I'm pretty sure Rodrigo Santoro isn't 8 feet tall.
That's the cool thing. They're not doing any visual effects in 300. They're doing it in Westworld to make him smaller.
They have all of the scenes with Maeve. He's actually kneeling on a box, like
very big shoulders. Like,
my god. Yeah, he's incredibly broad, man. Okay, so the elephant in the room here. On a scale,
there are elephants at the bottom of the gorge.
There are elephants. I felt really sorry for them. I always feel sorry when animals are killed in war movies, because they don't know. They're just being driven forward because
clumsy,
there's food.
Clumsy.
Yeah, clumsy beasts. On a scale of 1 to Russell Crowe, how badly does this movie want to be Gladiator?
Yes. 50. I think on a scale from 1 to Russell Crowe, it's definitely fighting around the world. Like, I'll tell you this. The moment which it was for me. Obviously, there's a lot of Gladiator stuff. Even even the look of Leonidas looks like Gladiator. What's his name in Gladiator? Can't remember.
Something Maximus.
Oh yeah, Gluteus.
What
Maximus,
is his name? Gluteus Max. Okay, yeah, sure. That's probably it.
Yeah. So the moment which actually, obviously, there's like Gladiator stuff the whole way through. Really, like the sort of way they're going about the character. But at the very end, whenever he's like, now this is actually quite a spoiler. So we'll move into spoilers now.
Let's get into spoilers. It's
a 12-year-old film. So, even more than that now. At the end, when he's kneeling down before he throws the spear at Xerxes, he's like thinking, and it like sort of shifts away to like a sun-dappled wheat field with his wife.
They watched that scene in Gladiator where it's in like Elysium and he's meeting his wife and son again. They're like, I tell you what, the wheat in this looks great. Let's get some of that in this movie.
That's exactly what was going on.
Yeah.
And when that happened, I was like, that's when the Gladiator parallels really smash.
And it's even got like the kind of the Hans Zimmer-esque score of like this kind of like quite low bassy woman singing like like and like this kind of wistful far off music, and it's just like the score in it's really weird to draw attention to your score as much as this movie does sometimes, because this score ain't Hans Zimmer. It's not as good as Gladiator's score, and it feels very derivative of other stuff. And as you've said, like the presentation of these like kind of sun-dappled wheat fields to represent this kind of dreamlike and very rural and rugged depiction of Sparta, which you can make the argument whether that's realistic or not. It's all pulled from Gladiator, and I think something else that probably is as well. I don't know if you felt this, but the politics kind of angle with Lena Headey trying to sort of convince the council to send the rest of the Spartan army to save the 300, and the way that plays out in the most blunt and just route one way imaginable. I feel like they were trying to do a similar kind of thing to Gladiator with, trying to make Rome a republic again and talking to senators and everything, but it's just it speaks volumes to the quality of the writing in Gladiator, which I don't even think Gladiator's that well written, but I mean it's certainly better written than this, and this, which is Zack Snyder, who's not a good writer at the best of times, and Frank Miller, who is insane, just coming up with this storyline where Lena Headey, Leonidas' wife, tries to sway her political rival, who she knows not to trust, with sex. He betrays her, accuses her of sleeping with someone she didn't, who then says nothing, and then stabs him. And he just happens to be carrying around a bunch of Persian gold. Which where even are you going to spend that in Sparta?
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought. I thought, why is that tempting whatsoever?
Yeah, and like she stabs him, and then everyone shouts traitor, and that's the end of the plot line. It's so bad.
End of the plot line. Although I think it does sort of lead to the ending scene whenever they're all sort of leaving for the battle. Yeah. But yeah, I to be honest with you, I was a little bit confused by the whole political situation. Like, why is she able to go to the council to ask to go to war when he had to go to some fucking weirdos living in the forest? Like,
he had to literally climb a mountain to go and ask someone to go to war, and she's like, it's just the council now.
That's like a privilege that the queen has that the king does not. She can actually just go to the council, and he has to go to weirdos with, and then there's also like. It sounds to me like Zack Snyder read about like a Greek mythology or Greek history and was like, we gotta have some young, sexy women who are oracles in there.
Some nubile young women to writhe about and get some nudity in it. I think like that whole plot line just feels enormously rushed, and I suppose it does kind of it does help us to arrive at the end of the movie, which is this like big triumphant battle between the allied armies of the Greek city-states and the Persian Empire, but it costs us Dominic West, who I think gets some of the best lines in the movie, talking about actors who I enjoyed in this. His writing is diabolically bad, but I feel like when Zack Snyder was writing, or maybe it's Frank Miller, I haven't actually read the graphic novel, so I don't know if these lines are in the graphic novel, but there's one particular bit where in that scene where Lena Headey is like trying to sway the council, and he says, he's basically turned on her, and then he says, take her from our sight, lest she infect us further with her inglorious and shabby self. And I was like, who are you trying to write Shakespeare, Zack Snyder? Like, why is he now talking like this, and why is he the only character to speak this way?
That does sound like he's trying to make like a moment, like a film moment, like that will be quoted, and he's so trying to sound so erudite, it's like, oh my god.
Yeah, I love that. I'd like fair play for giving it a go. Like that's, at least with that, he's swinging for the fences on his script. I don't think he hits, but it's a good effort.
Oh my god.
Yet another example of the script not being great. One other thing I wanted to mention, like I don't know if this will necessarily have resonated with you that much, but it does play into something else, I think, which is one of the more like there are elements of this movie which are stupid and kind of funny, but you can still enjoy it regardless of them. So like the sort of machismo, the shirtless, armorless Spartans who are like invincible, shouting like "Uah," like the and some of the kind of lighter Orientalism. But I feel like this movie doesn't present itself as historically accurate. I understand that it's not trying to represent the real story, but there is a very troubling theme that kind of runs throughout this movie of free men versus slaves, which, just in the context of like this battle as it actually happened, first off, it wasn't 300 Spartans versus like 1 million Persians. It was about 7,000 Spartans plus their allies versus about 70 to 300,000 Persians. And the Spartans all had slaves. There were 300 Spartan hoplites, and they had a bunch of slaves with them who made up a lot and non-citizens as well. Like they kind of there were sort of semi-citizens in Greek society called perioikoi who were like not slaves, but they were lower in the social strata. And I think this is me going back to this now. I definitely didn't get this at the time, and I wanted to ask you whether you did. But do you find it difficult at all watching a movie from 2006, very clearly made in like a sort of post 9/11 environment, where it's the main theme of the movie is free, which to me is kind of code for white Western men fighting a Middle Eastern oppressor who are depicted as barbaric. You've got the executioner with the sore arms, effeminate, like literally everyone is wearing eyeliner, like sexually deviant, with Xerxes' tent of pleasures where there's a literal goat playing a sitar, and cowardly all at once. And I know the graphic novel was written in 1998, but I feel like this feels a little bit to me like quite a vicious metaphor of America's kind of crusade into the Middle East in the years following 9/11.
Yeah, and it's interesting as well because if it is that, and if that's what in some way was even by osmosis the intention, it means that you can't walk away from this film thinking that the filmmakers didn't think that was right. You know?
Yeah, and I think that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to explore this Battle of Thermopylae through the lens of modern geopolitical tensions, which is not inherently a bad thing. But I just think that the way this is the main reason that this time round I really didn't like this movie, because previously I think I've enjoyed some of the Orientalism, and I think that's one of those things where I was younger I kind of saw that and was like, oh, that's quite stylish and different, I'm okay with that. But watching it now, it's like, yeah, this just feels like you're kind of making out you're
othering them. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like, which is, I mean, it in the context of something that's like ridiculous, inherently ridiculous, is not the end of the world. But I definitely think this whole free men versus slaves debate, when like Spartans had slaves, like they had plenty of, they had helots who were literally
they
slaves.
Mentioned free men a number of times in this film. Like they actually said it. Like
and it really rubbed me the wrong way. It's like if you're going to sort of appropriate history to deliver this kind of clumsy metaphor of the Western civilized world versus these barbaric Easterners, at least do it with something that is remotely accurate. Whereas with this, it's just like it's. I'm almost hesitant to say this because it's almost unrelated to the history, to be honest.
But it says it's like saying when they're saying you're a free man or whatever, do it like a free man is what Lena Headey's character said.
Yeah,
it's almost like she's saying you're the slave owner, go kill those slaves.
Yeah, and it really rubs me the wrong way. This kind of like moralizing that the movie does over this like free men versus slaves thing, and I try not to criticize a movie for. Well, no, actually, I was going to say I try not to criticize a movie for what it isn't, but in this case, I feel like this is more just criticizing it for having some really tone-deaf themes. And I guess in 2006 they were less problematic to me because I didn't really notice them. But Now I definitely do.
It's like all the bad guys for a certain amount of time were Russian during the Cold War era, and little time after. All of like these Russian spies were always like perceived as the bad. It's interesting to go back through moments in history and see how that manifests in film, because it definitely does.
Well, and I think one of the arguments against this kind of, and I understand it can be a bit annoying sometimes, people like bringing intellectual arguments to movies that are fundamentally unintellectual, which I include this in, which is not to say it's a bad movie or not worth watching. You can watch dumb action movies, that's fine. It's not a criticism of them, but I think there's often an argument that like, well, they're not trying to be intellectual or make these points, but I think movies like this, or I don't know if you've ever seen, we might have even talked about this before, but like Commando from the 80s.
With Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah, where I haven't seen it. He kills like so many, I think they're Colombian like drug cartel members in that movie. But movies like that, even though they might not think it, they have something to say about the society in which they were made. And I think 300 is definitely one of those where in 2006, tensions after September 11th were probably still high enough that this movie felt, even though it's kind of probably was even moralistic at the time, it felt a bit more appropriate. But now it's just like, oh man, this feels like a movie that someone made straight after a horrible act was committed against the country. It essentially feels like propaganda to me, which Commando does to some extent as well. It feels like a kind of endorsement of Reagan era war on drugs stuff in 80s America.
Yeah, well, I think people who don't see that point of view are going to be very sort of against that point of view and think it's just like, it's a classic story from back, but it comes down to how it's portrayed, and it's come down to what they choose to include and what they don't choose to include. And like, Konrad's not sitting here saying that Zack Snyder and Frank Miller intended to do this, but that's why I use the word osmosis. It's in the zeitgeist, it's osmosis, it's the situation that you're living in which informs your work. And I think there definitely is an argument for that. Yeah,
no, I think so, and I'm glad you agree. So, okay, I wanted to end this discussion with some positives because it's not the worst movie in the world. When I came to do my Letterboxd review of it, I did rewatch. I've watched it before. I saw that my first review of this was dating back was pre Letterboxd even existing, but I'd given it 4 stars and a like, and I was like, oh boy, that needs to change. So the like came off and it went down to 2 stars. But I will say, the action is still fun, and I think we've talked about it before, but the technique to capture both slow and regular speed motion by shooting on 2 cameras simultaneously and kind of cutting between them seamlessly, that still looks really good, I think. And the fight sequences are kind of great, I think. That's when the movie is at its best, when it's just like, let's do some cool fight choreography and with slow motion and swirling red capes.
I do agree with you, and the style in which it's shot, you still notice it a little bit with the stuntmen, but not as much. Like there's not as much men waiting to be killed as there are in other films. No. And I think it's because a lot of the time they just come in from off the screen and then get killed, so they're waiting off camera. But it's a little less than there are in other films, so it is quite fluid, quite dynamic, and I love that camera trick that they did, as you said.
I will say, talking about people waiting to be killed, the scene in this movie where Xerxes sends the Immortals after them, and they built a massive wall of bodies, and they shout "Spartans push," and then like several seconds pass before they're able to push the wall over onto the leader of the Immortals, who just stands there. And it's like, come on, dude! Like you don't need to be the one who goes to investigate this. Like someone else can do this.
Immediately dead.
Immediately dead. And that's those Immortals are another example of just like, what culture are these guys supposed to be from? They've got like katanas on their backs, but they're wearing turbans, and they're like essentially orcs.
They look like the orcs from Mordor. They're
like Uruk-hai. It's just like, it's so ridiculous. I mean, that I don't mind because it's just so stupid that it's like, okay, well, so these are literally orcs that you're.
And then they also had a guy with like saws for hands. Like,
yeah, that executioner guy is like someone out of Silent Hill. Like, he's just this big bloated guy with nipple piercings who has saws instead of arms to chop people's heads off.
What? Like,
what's that guy's day-to-day life like? That's what I want to know. Like, when he's not chopping off the heads of generals who've disappointed Xerxes, how's he eat? Does he just eat purely things that he can skewer with his saw hands?
yeah.
I'm gonna have an apple.
He probably has someone to put food in his mouth for him.
Yeah, he probably has like a set of like concubines or something to feed him and bathe him and all that stuff. Because
disgusting though.
You're not scrubbing yourself down with those. I'll tell you that much. Yeah, I mean, that's really all the positive I've got to say about this movie. The action is pretty good. The CGI hasn't aged that well, but I mean, Gerard Butler's does a good job. As we've said, I think there is an iconic character in there, even if he's kind of mired in a ridiculous movie.
There's a couple of big moments for him which you remember. Like, you remember This Is Sparta. You also remember, what is your profession? You know, that part.
Yeah.
So there's a couple of moments, the parts where he's like trying to be his own thing and not Gladiator.
I like the Arcadian guy who turns up and just immediately starts shit talking the Spartans. And
do you not know these guys?
In this reality, these guys are literally like the Avengers. Like there's 300 of them, and they like kill so many people, and none of them wear armor. They don't like.
They don't need it.
Well, clear. I mean, a couple of them do.
Yeah.
That dude. Okay, here's a question for you before we finish. I don't actually know his name, but you know the character who's like the sergeant? He's like Leonidas' second in command, who goes absolutely insane. Yeah, he goes insane when his son dies. Yeah. Do you think that was that guy's real hair? Because when his son gets his head cut off and he goes insane, I've never seen it. It looks like Gene Simmons' hair. It's just like this kind of thatch of hair that's like out to here. It's unbelievable volume that he gets on it.
I didn't think of it, as a teenager I was looking at those abs thinking they were fake. I should have been looking at the hair.
I think the abs were fake, to be honest. I think you were...
Some of them were.
I think most of them were at least embellished a little with some spray paint. There's
contrast
one scene...
turned up. You can see more lines than there should be.
There's one scene in particular where Michael Fassbender's in the background, and they've definitely got some kind of makeup on his chest to make him look like he's got more muscles than he actually does.
Michael Fassbender, I really I forgot he was in this. It's a sort of maybe a Florence Pugh in Fighting With My Family thing. I didn't really know who he was when I saw it,
this is definitely the first time I'd seen him.
He was in Hunger, the Irish...
was that 2006?
Hunger strike film. No, that was 2008. So he he was in it 2 years later. So I honestly thought Hunger was his first big break, but obviously not.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, we talked briefly off air about him being in Band of Brothers. I don't know what else.
He was in a number of episodes of Band of Brothers, apparently. Yeah.
I do not remember him in Band of Brothers at all, and I literally rewatched that like 3 months ago. So he can't have been that big a part, or I've just completely forgotten it. It's entirely possible.
He might be one of those guys when he was in his early 20s, he looks different than he did in his 30s, but when he was in his 30s, he still looked like he was in his early 20s.
Yeah, I think he grew up a lot in the space of like 5 years and then just stayed looking like that for the rest of his life.
Pat. His name plays a character called Pat. Burton P. Christensen. He's in 7 episodes.
He must be an easy company then. I'll have to go and watch it again. Anyway, Michael Fassbender's in this movie, and he's not bad either. That's the most positive thing I can say for it. And Anthony, any like parting thoughts for our beleaguered audience who probably want to hear us say something nice about a movie?
I'd never thought I would want to go and watch the sequel to this one, and I still kind of don't. But there's a thing in me now which thinks, if it's the same quality, which is not very good, but if it was the same quality, maybe I'll watch it. Maybe I'll watch it, see what happens.
I almost rewatched it actually. I've seen it once and I really didn't like it, but after watching this, I was like, maybe I should revisit that. Just to be honest, I hated that movie when I really liked this movie. So maybe I've done a switcheroo on these. And
who would have ever thought that Meet the Spartans would come out on top of these 3 films?
Yeah, that is a bold claim, actually. Like, Meet the Spartans is a bad movie.
Very bad.
We'll do like a watch party and watch all of them in quick succession, and then we'll rank them.
Yeah, the true sequel, Meet the Spartans.
Yeah. I've never seen it, so that'd be exciting. That's gonna do it for us, I think, here, which leaves us with as we always do, one simple question to answer, and that is, Anthony, what's your favourite movie this week?
I'm going to go Matilda, because it got me continue my good streak.
Oh, okay, lovely. I'm going to say Gladiator because it's a better version of 300. Thank you to Nancy Wyatt and Jared Iscariot for the use of our theme song. You can find links to their stuff down in the description, that's what it's called, below. Check out all their other stuff, and thank you to you for joining us. Please consider subscribing. We are the Culture Cave on YouTube. We are the best movie podcast ever on podcasting apps. And get involved in the comments. Let us know what you've been watching this week, and drop us a like. It really does help, and we will see you same time, same place next week.
And cut.